We need energy to make our dreams come true. We need energy to be there for the people who need us without feeling like we're giving them everything we have and leaving ourselves with nothing. That's not the goal here, right? The goal is not to leave ourselves with nothing. The goal in living an abundant life and an energetic life is to give people your extra. It's to have so much that you can't even hold on to it and you can't contain it, that you end up making such a big impact. Welcome to High on Self-Care. I'm your host, Stacey Zeal, yoga teacher, crystal lover, high-functioning stoner, and CEO of MaryZeal.com, a community for stoners who love cannabis and are looking to prioritize their self-care. On this podcast, we'll explore ways that meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and of course, all things weed can help you to elevate your self-care. We'll explore ways to truly value ourselves, use stillness for self-discovery, and cannabis to go higher on our journey. Think of me as your sister stoner who lovingly encourages you to prioritize yourself and reap the benefits of this magical plant. If you're ready to create a life that holds space for your most valuable asset, that's you, by the way, take a deep breath, light your J, and let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to High on Self-Care, peeps. Welcome new and seasoned peeps. I'm so excited to have you here. My name is Stacey Zeal, and I am a self-care coach for stoners, a yoga teacher, and the CEO of MaryZeal.com, which is a community that is empowering women to live their best lives and prioritize self-care. So I prefer my self-care infused with weed. So on the site and on this podcast, you'll find tons of great info about how and why to combine the two. So make sure that you subscribe to this podcast. Make sure that you leave a review if you've been here before. I so appreciate y'all. Reviews help me to reach more people, and it helps to really get the show out there. So I appreciate if you leave a review and you subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend, all the good things. Today, we are talking about energy. It is June. Happy June. We are 6 months into the year, y'all, and it has been a wild and crazy year. We started the podcast back in June, just passed the 1,000 downloads recently, and I'm just so grateful for everyone who checks out this podcast, who shares it with a friend, who does all the things. So thank you so much. So June is Energy Month. So all month, y'all, we are going to be talking about energy, today we're talking about how to protect your energy, giving some context of what that is. Next week, we have I'm going to be talking about how to create a squad or some friends that energize you, right? Like, you need people around you who fill into you and who fill you up energy-wise. So that's coming up next week. I'm going to have a special Juneteenth episode. We're going to talk about the racism behind cannabis prohibition and some resources for, all my Black folks who want to get into the cannabis space. I'm really excited to put that out there for y'all. And this month, we're going to have a guest talking about energy work. So it's going to be me and you for a couple weeks. Then we're going to have a guest come on here talking about energy work and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm so excited. So make sure you subscribe. If you want to get the podcast emailed to you every Thursday, head over to MaryZeal.com/podcast. And I have a sign-up sheet there, a sign-up form there. You can put your email list in, join the podcast tribe, and that makes sure that every Thursday you get the podcast right to your inbox. And any kind of special, fun, good stuff, that I want to email to you. So that's that. So head over to MaryZeal.com/podcast to do that. Also, I have a new blog post on the site. This is, I put together this ultimate guide for stoners, right? How to have a productive morning. And I find that, we know that there's this stigma saying that, stoners are not productive. People who like cannabis are lazy, all that kind of bullshit. So, we don't subscribe to that ideology here. So I put together this guide on how to actually be productive in the morning when you incorporate weed. So it's about how to get sleep with weed, how to create self-care, how to pick self-care and do all the things with self-care in the morning to actually get you out of bed, how to pick strains and stuff to go with your morning and all that kind of good stuff. So head over to MaryZeal.com/goodmorning. The link will also be in the show notes. So you can definitely check out that ultimate guide. It's great. It's pulling together podcasts, it pulls together blog posts, it pulls together all kinds of awesome things I have on the site. So again, make sure you head over to MaryZeal.com/goodmorning. Okay, so as I mentioned, June is Energy Month. And so one of the reason, let me start with, before I dive into the topic and all that kind of stuff, the reason I picked energy as the topic for June is because it's like, look, we are 6 months into the year. We had such a crazy year last year. This year has still been crazy as well, right? But, we're 6 months in, and at this point, I think that it is as good a time as ever, as any time, to really start to take stock into what your energy looks like, right? Who's around you? What's draining your energy? Like, what are you doing in your life to fill into yourself and to make sure that you are energized and abundant and all that kind of stuff. So I really wanted to start with that because it's like, what better time than any, right? We're halfway through the year. Take stock of how this year has been for you, what you've done this year, all the things you've accomplished. And then, use this point as a jumping off point to say like, hey, you know what? I want to make some changes. And these are the changes I want to make. We don't have to wait till, a new year or anything like that to make some changes, right? So wanted to talk about energy because I think that energy is just one of those things to me that is just vital to protect, right? Like we are energy. When we're thinking about energy, right? Like let's start, I love to start with the definition because I really like to set the context so we all are on the same page. So when I'm looking at the definition of energy, it is the strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. So it's the strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. So what that means is that, it's the stuff that we need to get stuff done, right? Essentially, right? That's what energy is what we need to get stuff done. And what we need, whether that's a physical activity or a mental activity, we need energy. And I would even throw in, spiritual energy in there as well. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about different kinds of energy. And it was interesting because when I was looking up this definition, one of the synonyms for energy is zeal. And, my site is called maryzeal.com. And originally where zeal came from my makeup artist days. And a zeal, when I was originally kind of looking at it, was it means purpose, right? It means passion. It means passion. It means having a real like zeal for life or a passion for XYZ. And so, the definition of zeal, great energy or enthusiasm in pursuit of a cause or an objective. And so Mary Zeal means great energy in the pursuit of Mary Jane, right? So I have this energy and this enthusiasm for cannabis and spreading the word of weed and, spreading my story about, how cannabis changed my life literally. And so, and it changed my life in a way that in the way that it relates to this conversation is by giving me that energy that I need for sustained mental and physical activity, right? It helps me mentally just as much as it helps me physically. And so that's why I think energy is so important, right? So there's different types of energy. So we have physical energy, right? It's the energy we need to physically do the things we have to do. So getting out of bed, getting enough sleep, all that kind of stuff. That's the physical energy. Mental energy. It's the energy we need to mentally show up and be ready for our biggest, and be ready to use our big, beautiful brains, right? So mental energy, we need to be able to think. We need energy to think, right? And then that spiritual energy is that energy that connects us to whatever higher power you believe in, right? I'm not here to tell you what higher power to believe in, but whatever you believe in, if whatever connection, that's the universe, God, the earth, whatever, you need that kind of energy to help guide you, right? Because that energy helps you, that energy gives you faith and hope when you don't have it, right? Like, when things get hard, that spiritual energy, that mental resilience and all that kind of stuff, that's what starts to kick in to help us to keep going, right? And so why is energy so important? Energy creates abundance, right? So we need energy to create abundance. And the definition of abundance means a very large quantity of something. And when I'm talking about abundance, I'm talking about abundance of love, abundance of, money, abundance of time, abundance of whatever it is that you want to bring into your life, having an abundance of time to be able to do the things you want to do, right? Like that's what we mean. That's why we need abundance. We need energy for that. We need energy to create abundance. And so in order for us to, so that's why it's so important. We have to, take a step back from saying like, I want to have an abundant life. I want to live this abundant, beautiful, amazing life, right? You need energy to create that abundance, right? You need energy to get up every morning to pursue your dreams and to pursue your goals so that you can, live the life that you want to live, or you can have the money that you want to have. You need energy to set boundaries so that you can free up your time, right? You need energy. So we need energy in order to create abundance. So that's why it's so important. That's why we're starting with energy. And so when we have a large amount of energy, we can give people our overflow, right? We give people our best selves. And so that's why abundance is so important. That energy and abundance is so important, because instead of giving people all we have, we give people our overflow, which our overflow is our best, because we've poured into ourselves, we've re-energized ourselves, we've done different things to create more energy in our lives that leads to that abundance, right? So we need energy to create abundance. We need energy to make our dreams come true. We need energy to be there for the people who need us without feeling like we're giving them everything we have and leaving ourselves with nothing. That's not the goal here, right? The goal is not to leave ourselves with nothing. The goal in living an abundant life and an energetic life is to give people your extra. It's to have so much that you can't even hold on to it and you can't contain it, that you end up making such a big impact because you've given to yourself first. You feel full, you show up your best, you show up being, ready to take on the world, to take on the stressors and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's what we're trying to do here. That's what we're trying to create. And so in my view, self-care is what creates that energy. So if you look at that kind of, that string of thought, right? Follow with me on the string of thought. Self-care creates energy. Energy creates abundance. Abundance allows us to show up for ourselves and our people and still feel full, right? So self-care creates energy. Energy creates abundance. We cannot have abundance if we do not have energy. We cannot have energy if we do not pour into ourselves and we do not refill our tank and we do not, tend to our needs. So it's also, it creates the other. It builds upon the next thing, right? And so when we have an abundance of energy, that's when we can create a real impact, right? Because we're showing up our best selves. We're showing up, and just being there physically, mentally, spiritually. We're connected to ourselves. We give people our best. So you can't give people your best if you're empty, right? We all, a quote I hear all the time and I use, often is that you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? But that overflow of energy is amazing. It's our best, right? It feels good. It feels good to give to people and to give to people when we are already full, right? You don't want to give people your last. We don't want to give people our last little bit and then just leave ourselves with nothing. Okay. So we got that, right? So we're getting that, energy, that self-care creates energy. Energy creates abundance. Abundance gets us to living a life that we want to live, right? That gets us to feeling great and making an impact. So I think we've hammered that. So I think I've hammered that point in, right? Okay. So I want to give you, I'll take you a little bit into nature for an example of this, right? To just really illustrate this and hit this home. So I'm a gardener. I love gardening. Gardening is definitely my hobby. It is not something that I ever foresee myself monetizing in any kind of way, because I think it's important to have things that you just love to do, right? Things that just, it's something that feeds me. I love to talk to my plant babies. I love to smoke my plant babies out, and I love the process of learning to garden. I love, how connected I feel with the earth and all that when when I garden. So plants are something that I just really, just picked up as a hobby and started to really kind of, dig into. And so we know, right? So I'm going to use a cannabis plant, for example. And so we know that, plants require energy, right? They require energy from the sun to convert carbon dioxide and water into energy. Photosynthesis. That's what they need. They need, sun, air, water. That's what it needs. Yes, of course, we have soil requirements. We need nutrients. We have, all kinds of stuff like that. But I'm just talking about high level, right? Plants need sun, air, and water to grow. And so, if when you're gardening and you have a plant, right, that's kind of struggling a little bit, you have a plant that's maybe changing a different color or, it's wilting or whatever, right? Usually if you're having some kind of gardening problem and it's not related to pests or anything like that or disease, usually it's something like you're not getting enough light. Your plant's not getting enough light. It's not getting enough water, or maybe it's getting too much water, or the roots are not getting enough air, right? So if we look at this plant and use it as use it and think about ourselves, right? We need rest. Okay? We need water, we need rest, we need nutrition, we need sun, we need all, we need vitamin D. We need all these things, right? We have so many things that we need to make ourselves just be able to operate at 100%, Or so when you're thinking about plants and nature and energy, right? Like I love the mirroring of nature in our lives, like humans, right? Like I think, just as plants have seasons, humans have seasons, plants have needs, we need different things. And I think that, plants will kind of tell you when they need something, right? So like if a plant is, kind of droopy and sad looking, most likely it probably needs some water. It's telling you it needs something, right? If a plant is not flourishing and standing up straight and just, really like beautifully blooming and whatever, something's wrong, and it will tell you. And so I think I look at like, ourselves, right? Like when there's something wrong, usually there's something wrong, maybe we have too much stress, we're not getting enough rest. We saw in the last episode of the podcast that, with the guest Erica, nurse Erica, sometimes stress manifests itself physically. That's how connected our body and our mind and our spirit is, right? That's what we talked about in the last episode. Go check that one out. So if we know that those things are connected, we know that we need, and we know that we need rest, we need water, we need community, right? We need people to talk to. At least I do, And so, it's our lives are just so, I find the parallels between our lives and nature just so interesting. And so, I want you to so the reason I kind of tell you that story and the actual point of the story, it's just to let you know that just like plants, just like nature, we have needs, right? In order to replenish, in order to operate, we need energy, right? And like we said before, self-care creates energy. Energy creates abundance. Abundance gets us to the life that we want to live. It gets us to live our best lives. So they're all connected. And so now that we understand how important energy is, I have some ways to protect and replenish it. Because I think that, just as our energy needs to be replenished, right? We need sleep, all that kind of stuff. We need to be able to protect it. Because our energy is precious, right? We realize that our energy leads to our abundance. And if we want that abundance, we got to protect that energy. And so I have a variety of different ways here to help you to protect or replenish your energy. And so the first way is my favorite, and what I talk about all the time, is getting some damn sleep. Okay. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on sleep because, I've talked about sleep a lot here. Head over to maryzeal.com/goodmorning. The first section in that is all about sleep. So definitely head over to maryzeal.com/goodmorning. Check that out. Second one, set and enforce boundaries. Whew, the B word. I love the B word. I love boundaries because boundaries get such a bad rap. People try to say boundaries make you selfish, or you should be your boundary should be very flexible. And in episode 10 of the podcast, I did chat with a guest about how to set boundaries. And one of the things, I went and re-listened to that episode, so you should definitely go re-listen to that episode. And one of the things I remember, from that episode, from re-listening, she said there was a journal prompt that she suggested. And the journal prompt was, I feel like X when you do Y. And so if you're someone who's struggling with boundaries, struggling to understand, how to set boundaries, how to enforce them, definitely go back and check out episode 10. And start with this journal prompt, right? Like pull out your journal, pull out a piece of paper, grab some weed, get your mind right, get yourself ready to kind of just open up and just say I feel like X when you do Y. And it could be any person, it could be, work, or it could be whatever. Start with understanding how you're feeling, because that's the first step in setting a boundary, right? The first step is not to just go Google what are some boundaries that I can set and then just set them, right? The first step is to check in with yourself to see how am I feeling when this person does that? When this person shows up at my house without calling, how am I feeling? Am I feeling like my privacy is being violated, or I feel like, just disrespected? How are you feeling when someone does this? Or something, something with work, if my boss always makes me work overtime on Thursdays, but I have something to do on Thursdays. Thursdays is date night or something. How is that making me feel? What boundary can I put in place so that way I can protect my energy? So I can say, you know what, I need to be done working at a reasonable time so that I can decompress, so I can have a smoke and go and meet my baby for date night, right? So these things can be applied at work. It can be applied at home. And so start with identifying those energy drainers and the things that are making you really just feel like drained and feeling like you don't have the energy to get to that next level, right? You don't have the energy to create the abundance. You don't have the time to create the abundance, right? Like, what is it that's draining your energy? Identify that, start with that, and start with that journal prop. I feel like X when you do Y. And from there, you learn to say yes to things. You learn to say no to things, right? But it starts with yourself. It starts with identifying what it is that is draining your energy and setting a boundary with that. Okay, next one, intentional deep breathing to recenter yourself. I literally just did this. Okay. So intentional breathing. I love, our pranayama, which is breathing in yogi speak. Breathing is your anchor. I always feel like that. Once I learned that my breath is my anchor, it's something that I always have, that I can always come back to, that I can always use to recenter myself. I can always take a deep breath and bring myself back. Like sometimes when you feel like you're just getting too excited or you're saying too much or doing too much or whatever, you can always take a deep breath to come back to center. So I find that sometimes when I'm going through my podcast, right, and I'm, giving these tips, sometimes I start to get on a rant or tangent or, whatever. And I have to really I instinctively will take a breath and come back to center. Those type of things, get cut out of the podcast, obviously, those edits. So it really just helps to calm your energy and bring you back in control, right? It makes you feel like you're back in control of your thoughts. You're back in control of your breath because I have control of my breath. So I have control of myself. So I have control of my thoughts. I have control of my energy, right? So try intentionally deep breathing when you are finding yourself getting a little too worked up. You find someone is just getting on your damn nerves and they just go make you snap, right? Find your breath. You always have it. It is there with you. You can always control your breath. You can always come back to it. Next, grounding so you feel stable. I love grounding work, okay? And so when I'm thinking about grounding in an energy kind of sense, right? I'm thinking about balancing your chakras. And in particular, I'm thinking about the root chakra. And so when I was a yoga teacher, still am a yoga teacher, right? When I was in yoga teacher training, we learned about the chakras. I even have a big chakra tattoo on my arm. If you've never seen it, head over to Instagram. It's on there. My Instagram name is Stacy Zeal, STACYZEAL. And so I have a big chakra tattoo because I love energy work so much. I love the chakras. When I learned about them, it really kind of made me energetically wake up, right? Energetically, you can tap into different parts of your body. So what are chakras? Chakras are like energy centers along your spine. And so there are 7 throughout your body, right? You have chakras throughout your body. But anyway, the 7 major ones are along your spine. And so what they do is they're responsible for energy traveling up and down the spine. And if you've ever done Kundalini yoga, I've done it I think maybe once or twice, but like the whole thing with Kundalini style of yoga is to unblock the spine, is to unblock that energy channel so everything flows up and down nicely, right? And so there are 7, and I'm most likely going to have someone talk about chakras, or I'll talk about chakras or something on the podcast at some point because I think they're just so awesome to learn about. And so your root chakra. The root chakra in particular is at the base of your spine, and it's responsible for feeling grounded and confident, right? Grounded and confident. And so I start with the root chakra, and I put an emphasis on there because a lot of times if there's something blocked there, that's when we don't feel connected to the ground. We don't feel like we are connected to ourselves, right? Because that energy channel is blocked. And if it's the root chakra is blocked, all the other, energy can't flow to the other chakras. It can't flow to your throat chakra or your sacral chakra or your heart chakra, all that kind of stuff, right? So if you're not grounded, then you feel off balance. You feel, like you're just floating away, right? You don't feel like you're connected to self. And so how that comes into the energy conversation and protecting your energy is because you want to make sure you're like, paying attention to making sure you're feeling grounded first. Making sure you feel like your feet are on the ground, making you feel like you are confident and your shoulders are down, you're standing up tall, right? You feel like you are in control. And you feel like you are at least grounded in a sense that you're connected to the ground and you can actually start to, take those first kind of steps into setting boundaries or, recentering yourself and that kind of thing because you're feeling grounded and you're feeling, confident in what you're standing for. And so, some things that you can do to unblock your root chakra are things like taking a walk, doing some yoga poses, in particular, like some balancing poses or some seating poses like tree pose or lotus. Right? So there's a lot of things you can do to unblock your root chakra. Those are kind of some of the things I would say. Like try taking a walk, taking a mindful walk. I love a walk and smoke. That is like one of my favorite things to do. I sometimes, most of the times I do it without headphones or anything like that because that really just helps me to smoke, center myself, get my thoughts, just start to see what comes up in those kind of thoughts, feeling grounded, feeling like, confident and all that kind of stuff. So I love a smoke and walk. Y'all know I love yoga. So those are some things that you can try. Another thing is crystals. Crystals help to replenish your energy. It helps to repel bad energy. I believe, as I mentioned earlier with plants, like I believe in the healing energetic power of nature, right? So I think that there are these crystals and rocks and minerals out there that are meant to help replenish our energy. And so I have a couple crystals here that I wrote down that you can use. I keep my crystals around my house. I keep it around my windows and beds and stuff like that to kind of keep good energy in, repel negative energy. So one thing, black tourmaline repels energy. Rose quartz attracts love energy. It helps to foster love energy. So rose quartz is a one to always have in the house. Pyrite is for protection. So protection against, bad energy and stuff like that. So there's a ton of crystals that you can look into that would fit for your needs. And if you want to hear more about crystals, you want me to bring on an expert to talk about crystals, because, I love to learn about it. Send me a DM on Instagram. Let me know. And I will book somebody ASAP to talk about crystals. Next is burning sage. Burning sage is pretty popular. Or at least, it's something that I see people talk about frequently. And so, I think a lot of people know the concept of burning sage. Sage helps to move energy. And so and to illustrate this point about how powerful it is, I'll give you a story. So I remember one time I was when I was living in Vegas, we had some people at our house that we didn't really know like that. And I remember, they left, nothing, crazy happened. They left. And I remember just waking up in the middle of the night, just feeling like I could not, I just felt like there was a negative energy lingering, right? I just felt like there was a heavy kind of energy. Let me know if you've ever felt like that, right? Like you felt like it was physically heavy. The energy was so heavy that you kind of feel it. And so I just was like, this is just crazy. So I talked to my partner. He's like, sage. So I'm like, okay. So I saged the house, and literally the house felt lighter. It felt better. And that was one of the first times I really was like, wow, sage does really work. It's not just like, the kind of woo-woo crazy shit people always talk about. So I was like, it literally felt lighter, And so again, sage, great thing to use for protecting energy or removing negative energy that you have lingering. I always we always sage our house before we move into any apartment and stuff like that as well. So that's always a good thing. Another one is clean up your social media feed. Y'all, I love scrolling just as much as the next person. So I'm not going to tell you not to scroll. What I am going to say, though, is that we consume so much energy, right? Social media, all of that consuming, that requires energy. It pulls energy from us, mentally. It makes us go into comparison syndrome. It makes us, think about negative things. So it does have an impact on our mental energy, right? So one of the things I would say is go and stop commenting on and following all this negative shit, right? Like, there's so much going on in the world, y'all. So much negative, crazy stuff going on. So go in, clean up your feed, follow some positive people, Follow me. I try to post positive stuff, and I try to post cannabis, information and all kind of stuff. So definitely make sure that you are interacting with things that are positive. So I'm on the other side of the house, outside of the podcast, I'm a marketer. I'm a digital marketer. Specifically, my specialty is paid social media. So even if you're not following a bunch of negative pages, if you're interacting with them, the algorithm and Facebook and Instagram, they're just going to show you more of that, right? Because it's a machine, it's a computer. The goal of their machine is to keep you on their platform for as long as possible because they want to show you ads. And so in order to do that, it's going to see like, oh, Stacey interacts with this type of content. Let me show her more of this type of content. So if you're interacting with a bunch of negative stuff, a bunch of gossip sites, a bunch of, stuff that's really just about negative stuff, the algorithm is just going to keep showing you that. And we saw that, with the election, not this recent one, the election that, I choose not to not to acknowledge, right? But like, so much of that negative stuff and negative messaging that was pumped into social media, it was so effective. Why? Because the more we see negative things, the more that has a hit on our mental energy, right? It has a hit on our brain. We're getting dopamine and stuff sent in our brain based on negative things that we're seeing on social media and all over the web, right? Not just on social media, all over the place. So go in, unfollow some negative stuff, stop interacting with negative stuff, follow some positive people, follow some positive things, post positive things, be a positive person, in your social media feed. And I'm telling you, it has an impact on your mental health. It really, like, you start to see more positive messages, you start to think more positive messages. So definitely do that. Next, eat right. Okay? I'm not here to tell you what to eat. Okay? But what I will say is that studies show that there is a link between your gut health and your mental health. So if all you're putting in your body is fatty, nasty, greasy stuff, that has a link to your mental health, right? There's a big link between gut health and anxiety, right? So if you have, a lot of anxiety, a lot of times they try to tell you to figure out what are you eating, right? Take a look at your gut and all that kind of stuff. So it's really important. And mind you, I love fatty, greasy, nasty stuff, okay? So I'm not here to tell you, what to eat or whatever. I'm not here to go down that road with you. But I will say, try to make sure that you are balancing out what you're eating. You're putting good, healthy, clean stuff in your body so that your body can just, operate better. It can, produce more energy. It can be physically feeling better. Drink your water, all that kind of stuff. Okay, next. 2 more. Practice mindfulness to get rid of those negative thoughts. Okay, I mentioned in the last episode, we talked about how stress and negative thoughts manifests itself physically on that guest. Okay, so all that stress that you're taking in, all that stuff you're talking to yourself about yourself, you're saying you're ugly, or you're not pretty, or you stink, or you're not a great person, or you're mean. I used to say I was mean all the time. I used to say, I'm just mean. I'm mean. But it's like, no, I'm not actually mean. Maybe I was mean. I'm not mean anymore. And so there are things. So with mindfulness, we've talked about mindfulness in some of the episodes before. Like, it allows you to start challenging your thoughts. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm a mean person, I'm a negative person, you can step into the present and say, no, I'm choosing not to think that. I'm choosing not to put those thoughts out there into the universe that I'm a negative person. Right? I'm not going to put out there that I am an ugly person. I'm going to put out love and, and in that, putting out loving thoughts and switching those negative thoughts to loving thoughts, that's going to help you to attract abundance. And that helps you with your mental energy, right? Like, being a Debbie Downer is a downer. Okay? Like, being someone who is always in a negative, challenging space, where you're challenging, where you're just being negative and just letting those thoughts just go unchecked and just saying like, well, I'm just going to accept the fact that I'm negative, or I'm just going to accept the fact that I'm mean. I'm just going to accept the fact that, I'm an asshole, right? So you can start to challenge those thoughts that you have and start to say, you know what? I don't want to think that. I'm not going to choose to believe that about myself. I'm going to choose to say, instead of whenever I have a thought that says I'm a negative person, I'm going to switch that thought and say, I'm a positive person. I'm a positive force. I am surrounded by positive energy. And that brings me into the last tip. It's some affirmations for abundance, right? So remember, self-care creates energy. Energy creates abundance. Abundance allows you to live the life that you want to live. So in order for us to live abundantly, we must have the energy to do so. We must have the space to do so. Okay? And so here's some affirmations for abundance. I am attracting abundance. I am attracting abundance. I am surrounded by positive energy. I am attracting a positive energy from the universe, from God, from whatever source you believe in. My energy is precious and protected. And lastly, I am manifesting abundance. And I love affirmations, because affirmation, just saying those out loud, just seeing them on the page, it makes me feel good, right? Whether you believe them right now or not, that's not the point. The point is that you are challenging those negative thoughts. You're bringing yourself into the present moment, and you are affirming who you are, who you want to be, because that's where it starts. It starts with affirming who you want to be, and then you start to create your path. You start to chart your path, right? Self-care creates energy. Energy creates abundance. Abundance allows us to live the life that we want to live, where we make an impact and we still feel full and taken care of, and our needs are met. Okay? So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this was a great start to June. Head on over to check out the ultimate guide for stoners, how to have a productive morning, at maryzeal.com/goodmorning. Make sure you head over to maryzeal.com/podcast so that you can get on the email list, so you can get the podcast emailed to you every Thursday. You can get some fun, free resources that I have going out to that list and stuff like that. So make sure you head over to maryzeal.com/podcast to get on the podcast list. Head over to maryzeal.com/goodmorning to read that really nice, big, yummy article about how to have a productive morning. It talks about sleep. It talks about self-care in the morning, creating a morning routine. It talks about all the things. Okay. So definitely head over there and check that out. And remember, rate and subscribe, leave me a review. Let me know what you think of the episode. Let me know what you think of the podcast in general. Invite some friends to come on over, share this episode with someone who you think would benefit from having their energy re-energized or protected, or, reinvigorated and stuff like that. So that's our episode. Hope you have a great day. Bye. OMG, I could talk about that all day, sis. Want to get more insights like this to your inbox every week? Say less. Just head over to maryzeal.com/subscribe to join our newsletter.